All right, we got an uncomfortable situation today. We got two Modesto ash. Two Modesto ash. And when you look up there, the trees are leafing out. And from a distance, a lot of people say, well, that's not a bad looking tree. But I made the recommendation to cut these bad boys back severely because of a lot of reasons. And the reasons are pretty significant. Now, first off, this is a species of tree that is recognized for splitting limbs. And when you have lots of tight inclusions like that, the likelihood of this limb splitting off just from that is very real. But if you add to it what's going on inside here, this has been a catch-all for a long time. You've got a little pistache tree that's growing in here, and you've also got another tree with a root system that's growing down in here. So it doesn't take an arborist to figure out that this is likely a significant weakness that goes into the main part of the trunk. This tree is very likely hollow. There's a lot of decay in here. We have another significant weakness up here. This is hollowing out, this is rotten, there's a lot of rot, there's some rot, there's an old limb here. There's insect frass inside here, which is either termites or carpenter ants. So this whole section of the tree is very weak. So you have all these weaknesses down low. Then you couple that with all the weaknesses up high. Everywhere I look, I see it's kind of dark there, but that's hollowed out right at a Y. There's a bad spot. There's that whole upper section there is rotting out. This area has got a big hole in it, right at a Y. That's a really significant weakness. There's a significant weakness there. There's a really bad weakness right here too. I don't know if you can see that, but this is all rotted all the way down. And that's full of, like I said, either carpenter ants or termites. Oh, look at that one. That one's pretty bad. And it's a little dark. It's kind of hard to see all this. But that whole thing is rotted all the way down. So in reality, both of these trees, this one's every bit as bad, maybe even worse. The top of that branch is all rotted. This is all rotted over here. All of this is rotted all the way through, all the way down here. Honestly, these trees should be condemned. These trees have exceeded their value. So they didn't want to lose the trees, so my suggestion was to basically cut them in half. Cut them, at least a third off the top, maybe more, and let them sucker out. That'll make them safer. It'll buy them some time, but it certainly won't fix the decay. Now the weaknesses in this tree will lead to limb failure. Something's going to break, something's going to split. The damage that's going to occur is very real. So he's busy. He had to go back inside to a Zoom call. His question to me is, can't we cable this thing together? Good Lord. I said no, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't accept that liability. Look at the rot on this one right here. Sorry it's so dark. I should wait till the sun comes out and do this again. So let's talk about the Modesto Ash just a little bit. In 1927, in Modesto, California, a shipment of Arizona ash was sent to be planted in a park, and there was one tree that was unusual. It was a variant, and they named that tree the Modesto Ash. So, oh, look at that. This is from some past pruning. I say a picture tells 1,000 words, doesn't it? So anyway, this particular tree has been worked on, and it is full of cavities and decay pockets. And unfortunately, this tree that was thought to be a real amazing example of an ash tree on the West Coast has turned out to be a tree with lots of problems. It's not resistant to insects at all. Carpenter ants get up there. Decay pockets, they just really are, in my opinion, a mistake. They're a beautiful shade tree. They tolerate the heat. There's a lot of benefits for planting this tree, and that's why it was so popular in the hot little city of Modesto, California. Oh, look at that! Look at how much rock there is. Fortunately, I was up in the bucket truck doing most of this work, so I was able to get to the tops because I certainly wouldn't want to climb this disaster. So the client did not want to remove these trees, and I really had a hard time talking them into reducing them to minimize the leverage on these weaknesses. I left this one long branch up here, put a ring on there so that I could swing that in. I had Jorge on the roof with the extension pole saw, and we were able to get that down safely without damaging the roof. And that's what it looks like at the end of the job. Not a recommended procedure if the trees weren't in trouble, but this is a last-ditch effort to save them.
Chinese pistache, Pistachia chinensis. They're really a beautiful tree, especially with the fall color, but they do have an inherent weakness that they split limbs. And here you can see evidence of a split limb from years ago. You can see all the little bore holes that are starting to get in there. Somebody painted the surface, which is no longer an accepted procedure that has any value. Years and years ago, people used to seal up all their wounds, but it's no longer, it's been proven to be of no long-term value whatsoever, so people don't do it so much anymore. I certainly don't. You can see a big limb broke off here and split, and yet another big limb split off over here. Starting to rot on this side, but it's got lots and lots of suckers. He doesn't want to lose the tree, so what we're doing is we're trying to do the best we can with what we've got to work with, and anything that's coming back in or straight up and down is less likely to break. I took a fair amount of weight off on this limb because that's more of a potential for breakage, as well as the next one. I took some weight off out over there, as well as getting it up off of the road. We're going to leave all these suckers here, and hopefully they'll fill in and give at least a semblance of a full tree. Now if you look at the tree across the street, you can see yet another big issue. When you look at the tree like this, you can see that everything on that side is gone, so the balance of this tree has been greatly altered. So we're just doing the best we can with what we have to work with. See how much brush I've got on the ground from that tree. This tree is done. Now, this tree over here does have a cable up there, which was good. I mentioned that to the neighbor. I said a cable might be a good idea, so we did a very, very nice job. It's a through cable on both sides, drilled all the way through, and that's because they recognize this massive big limb that's split out. So the weakness in here, looking down here, is very, very real. Now the problem is going to be that this tree is now completely and totally dependent upon that cable, and there's so much weight out there that at some point in time, even with the cable on there, if the wind picks up, this thing is going to have a tendency to split and pull and split and pull, and this is not going to get better. The decay in here is going to continue to get worse. Oh, and look at this side. The split that goes all the way down, all the way to here. This is definitely a weak limb. And you can see all the little bug holes in there, little bore holes. This tree is likely to be hollow. So while the cable was a smart move, it's also gives these people a sense of false security that this is completely safe. It's definitely safer, but it's not safe by any means. And right next door, interesting that there's yet another pistache tree that is leafing out considerably more and considerably faster than the trees right adjacent to it. I always wonder why one tree leaves out and another tree doesn't. Same species, same cultivar, everything else is the same. Why does one tree sprout out earlier? Does it have to do with where the tree was developed early, where it came from, what sort of environment it came, maybe how it got started. I really don't know. But it's interesting that this tree is, it looks like it's a couple of weeks ahead of these other trees. So we're also working on this big live oak in the backyard. And if you look over on that side, the neighbors came along and chopped off everything on their side. So it's really half a tree, and it's growing excessively heavy on this side. So we've taken a lot out and trying to lighten it up and open it up for these people. And that's kind of interesting. If you look at this right here, they've got an outdoor kitchen that can't be moved and a really expensive brand new stainless steel hood under there for a barbecue. So we put a couple of cushions underneath another tarp in case, and we also added a bunch of branches on top to, you know, if we screw up, we will hit that first. So you can see how much we've taken out of the tree so far, and we still got a long ways to go. All the little cuts, we got some separation, but this tree is not that old. It's probably 40 years old, and it's going to get a lot bigger. Unfortunately, it's only half a tree.